How heavy is the past? It has no physical weight. You cannot put it on a scale. You cannot hold it in your hands. Yet, it is the heaviest thing a human being can carry. Some of us wake up every morning, strap a backpack filled with regrets onto our shoulders, pick up 2 suitcases filled with guilt and what-ifs, and try to walk through our day. We wonder why we are so tired. We wonder why we cannot move forward. We wonder why we are stuck. We convince ourselves that if we carry these bags long enough, maybe, just maybe, we can fix what happened. Maybe we can trade the pain for a time machine. But the universe has a strict baggage policy. Today, we travel to a foggy platform at the edge of time. This is the story of James, a man who missed every train because he refused to let go of the luggage that was crushing him. James was a traveler. Or at least, he looked like one. James was a traveler. Or at least, he looked like one. He stood in the middle of the grand central terminal of his mind. But this wasn't a normal station. The ceiling was lost in thick grey fog that swirled like trapped ghosts. The floor was made of cracked, cold cobblestones that were wet with a rain that never seemed to stop. The clocks on the wall had no hands. They were just blank white faces staring down at him. James was holding 2 enormous suitcases. They looked like they were made of rusted iron and old, cracked leather. They were so heavy that his clay arms were stretched thin, his knuckles were white, and his back was bent into a painful arch. Sweat, looking like thick glycerin drops, rolled down his forehead and stung his eyes. Every step was a battle. Clomp, drag, clomp, drag. The sound of the heavy metal, scraping against the stone floor, echoed through the empty station like a scream. James wasn't waiting for a train to the Bahamas. He was waiting for the train to yesterday. He wanted to go back to 2014. To the day he made that mistake. To the day he lost her. To the day he took the wrong job. He believed that if he just waited long enough, the train would come back, and he could fix it. His muscles screamed in agony. His fingers were locked around the handles, fused together like they were glued. He had been holding these bags for so long that he didn't know where his hands ended and the suitcases began. People walked past him, shadowy figures getting on trains to new opportunities or future joy. They traveled light, they moved fast. James looked at them with deep envy and bitterness. How can they just walk away? He muttered to himself, his voice raspy. Don't they care about what they lost? I care. That's why I carry this. This weight proves that I am a good person. This pain proves that I remember. A sharp whistle blew in the distance, cutting through the fog. A figure emerged from the steam. It was the station master, Arthur. Arthur was a tall, imposing man, wearing a vintage uniform with gold buttons that gleamed even in the dim light. His face was weathered, like a cliffside beaten by the ocean for 1,000 years. He held a brass pocket watch that ticked loudly. Tick, tock, tick, tock. He walked over to James, his footsteps making no sound on the stones. Ticket? Arthur asked, his voice calm but authoritative. James struggled to look up without dropping his bags. He gasped for air. One ticket to the past, please. I need to go back to the moment I decided not to move to London. I need to change it. I have the money, I have the desire. Arthur looked at James, then looked at the empty tracks disappearing into the darkness behind them. There are no trains going that way, son. The tracks behind us are broken. The bridge has collapsed. Trains only go forward from here. James shook his head frantically, panic rising in his chest like cold water. No, no, you don't understand. I have paid for this ticket with my suffering. Look at these bags. Look how much I am carrying. I have suffered for 10 years carrying this guilt. Surely that buys me a ride back. Surely The universe owes me a refund. Arthur sighed. It was a sad sound. He walked round James, inspecting the iron suitcases. He tapped one with his cane. It made a hollow, dull thud. Suffering is not a currency, James, Arthur said softly. You cannot buy a ticket to the past with a coin of pain. No matter how much you pay, the shop is closed. You are standing in line for a store that went out of business years ago. Suddenly, a bright, blinding light pierced through the fog. The ground shook. A massive, sleek, golden train arrived at the platform. The engine hissed, releasing clouds of white steam that smelled of fresh rain and ozone. The sign on the train read, "The Present." The doors hissed open. The inside was warm, inviting, and full of soft, golden light. It looked like peace. "This is the last train for today," Arthur announced, checking his watch. "It leaves in 1 minute. Get on." James's eyes widened. He wanted to get on. He hated the cold, damp station. He hated the fog. He wanted to be warm. He took a step forward, dragging his iron bags. He reached the door. But there was a problem. The suitcases were too wide. They were too heavy. He tried to push the left bag through the door. It got stuck. Clang. He tried to pull the right bag. It jammed against the frame. Bang. The entrance was designed for people, not for iron burdens. "Help me," James screamed at Arthur, his voice cracking with desperation. "Push me in. Make it fit." Arthur stood still. "I cannot push you. And the train cannot take that cargo. This train is built for speed, not for storage. There is no room for yesterday's iron in today's carriage." "But I can't leave them," James cried, tears mixing with the sweat on his face. "Everything I am is in these bags. My memories, my apologies, my excuses. If I leave them, I will be empty. I will be nothing." The whistle blew again, louder this time. The doors started to close. James pushed harder. His clay skin started to crack from the strain. He was using all his strength to force his regrets into his future. But physics was against him. You cannot move forward while holding on to what is holding you back. James, Arthur shouted over the noise of the engine. "Open the bags. Look at what you are fighting for. Have you ever checked what is inside?" James hesitated. He hadn't opened the bags in years. He just carried them. He assumed they held gold. With trembling hands, he unlocked the rusty latches of the first suitcase. Click, click, he threw it open. He expected to see precious memories. He expected to see important documents. But the bag was filled with ... rocks. Just grey, heavy, useless, jagged rocks. On each rock, a word was carved. Mistake, shame, fear, anger. Why me? James stared at them. "Rocks," he whispered. "I have been breaking my back for rocks." He opened the second bag. It was filled with sand, just heavy, wet sand, labeled "What Ifs." "It's just dead weight," Arthur said, stepping closer. "It has no value. It feeds you nothing. It teaches you nothing. It only slows you down. You thought you were carrying treasures, but you were just carrying a graveyard." This moment is what psychologists call the sunk cost fallacy. We refuse to let go of something just because we have invested time in it. We think, "I have been sad for so long. If I let go now, my sadness was for nothing." But there is also a neurological trap here. The brain path of rumination, replaying the past, becomes a deep highway. It feels safer to drive on that old, bumpy road than to build a new one. But James realized something in that fog. The rocks didn't define him. The rocks were just things he picked up along the way. He was the one holding them, which meant ... he was the one who could drop them. James looked at Arthur. Arthur nodded. James opened his hands. It was the hardest thing he ever did. His fingers were stiff, locked in a claw shape from years of gripping. He had to pry them open one by one. Thud. The first bag hit the floor. Thud. The second bag hit the floor. Instantly, James felt a strange sensation. He felt weirdly light. He felt dizzy. The gravity that had been crushing his spine was gone. He felt like a balloon that had just been untied. He jumped. He leaped through the closing doors of the golden train just as they snapped shut. He landed on the soft carpet inside. The train began to move. Through the window, he saw the lonely platform moving away. He saw the two rusty iron bags sitting there, alone in the fog. They looked small now. They looked silly. He waved goodbye to them. "Thank you for the lessons," he whispered. "But I don't need to carry the textbook anymore." James sat down. He ordered a coffee. For the first time in 10 years, he looked out the front window to see where he was going, instead of the rear window to see where he had been. What about you? Are you standing on the platform right now? Are you trying to force your heavy bags of regret into your future? The train is waiting. But it won't wait forever. Check your hands. If they are bleeding, it's time to let go. The past is a place of reference, not a place of residence. Are you ready to board the train? Type "I let go" in the comments below. Subscribe to Travel Lighter